Hello everybody, welcome back to Leah's Adventures, or Leah's Lifestyle, depending on if you're on Twitch or on YouTube. Today we're reading, this is a little loud for me, today we're going to be reading Rule Number 1 by Phil Town. I've read this book once already and I enjoyed it a lot, but I'm kind of at the point where I really need to start taking action, and I need to write down what those actions are from the books that I want to do. And so I'm hoping that maybe you'll follow along as I read this out loud again and learn something for yourself. Get something out of it. Since I'm doing it anyways, right? Okay. Chapter 1 is The Myths of Investing. There's an introduction, but we're not going to read that. Okay, so the first thing that, in the first chapter of rule number 1, there's a little quote here. An expert is a person who avoids small error as he sweeps on the grand fallacy. Benjamin Stolberg, 1891 to 1951. I think this is it. We're going for it. The gold standard of low-risk investment is a 10-year United States Treasury bond, which is the time of this writing has a return of about 4%. That, I think you guys should know, actually, it changes, and I think right now Treasury bonds are doing pretty great, which is not a good sign. As far as I understand, it's not a good sign when Treasury bonds are doing great. We need to be concerned about that. I'm going to be writing my first note, which is research Treasury bonds, so you can truly understand them, because that's like the first thing he brings up. Research Treasury bond. The first thing he says is they're about 4%. And I think that's right. You can get most savings accounts, not most, I shouldn't say that. A decent savings account should have 4%. If you have an account in which you have less than 4% in a savings account, you should definitely switch your bank, because there's lots and lots and lots of banks where not the savings account, but the checkings account has an interest of 4%. That, guys, literally 3% in the US is what our average inflation rate is, and if you're not getting back that 4%, you are losing that 4% every paycheck, every month, every year. So minimally you need to be protecting your money in a 4% account. Minimally. And if you don't, you need to get treasury bonds. Like, one of the two. I think banks are just a little bit safer in the sense of access to your money. If it's something where you're more of a paycheck to paycheck person, where like sometimes you skimp a little bit off of your savings to roll over into like the next, like before you get your next paycheck, and then you kind of take it and put it back in, which like that's kind of where I've been at, because I've been living paycheck to paycheck, paying off bills and old debts and stuff like that. So I think if you don't have a 4% checking or savings account right now and with interest, definitely look into treasury bonds, so that way you can put your savings away, especially if you know you're not going to be needing your savings. I think that's what I've learned so far. Anyways, since I interrupted the first sentence, let's start again. The gold standard of low-risk investing is a 10-year United States Treasury bond, which, at the time of this writing, has a return of about 4%. Invest in nothing but these bonds, and you're guaranteed a 4% haul. The only problem with which a strategy, especially for the millions of soon-to-be retired baby boomers, is that at 4%, it takes 18 years to double your money. In addition, after 18 years, even with a low inflation rate of 2 to 3%, most of the gain is absorbed by higher prices, leaving you with the only slightly more buying power than you had 18 years earlier, which honestly, that is one reason why I don't like, I haven't really looked into treasury bonds because, like, the savings account, I got a 6% savings account. Why would I need a treasury bond? But again, I've heard the treasury bonds are starting to go up. Again, not supposed to be a good sign, but also take your wins where you find them. Okay. Where were we? Leaving you with only slightly more buying power than you had 18 years earlier. Despite the reality, investors buy billions of dollars of these 4% bonds. Why in the world would anyone want to own a bond that barely keeps pace with inflation and realizes almost no real gain in wealth? Because almost everyone is convinced that a higher rate of return necessarily means a lot more risk, and therefore they are more afraid of losing money in an attempt to get a higher return than of their inability to retire comfortably. The fact is, a higher rate of return is not necessarily contingent on incurring significantly more risk. Let me explain. High returns don't necessarily mean more risk. During a talk in the American West Arena in Phoenix, Arizona, I asked the audience, how many of you drove your cars here today? Most people raised their hands. Okay, almost everybody. And how many of you took a huge risk driving here? A few hands went back up. You guys took a huge risk driving here? I asked increasingly. Either you drivers didn't really take a risk and are just clowning around, or at last, we found the problem with Phoenix traffic. You people with your hands up don't know how to drive. Is that it? Everybody laughed. Okay, so it wasn't so terrifying to drive down here. But now imagine that you're coming here, but instead of you doing the driving, it is your 11-year-old nephew behind the wheel. Are you taking a lot of risk now? People laughed and nodded. Yes, the trip was the same going from A to B. But when you put someone in the driver's seat who doesn't know how to drive, a relatively safe trip becomes an increasingly risky trip. Which is a very nice way of saying, if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, don't do it. Investing. You know? You will lose out a lot if you don't know what you're doing with investing. Toffee! Hello, mate. How you doing? I missed you guys. I'm glad you came back. If you don't have the book already, I understand because I just said it yesterday. But we should definitely do like a read along and or a note taking with me. You can get them online if you guys have Libby. You can get the book online. That's how I have it on my laptop right now. Well, that's if you're in the US. I don't know if they have Libby in other countries. It's just an app on the store. Yay! We'll get louder in the future. How about that? We'll make it a goal to make the loudest toffees. We can make a compliment where you take all the little snippets of everything and they're just like together, and it could just be me repetitively yelling toffee. That would be great. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make your headphones burst. I do that sometimes. I have had many I was going to say many compliments, but it's many complaints, not a compliments. Okay. We were just talking about compilations. Yes. Complimentary. No, a compilation. Compilation. Is it C-O-M-P? C-O-M-B? Why do I want to say combulation? Combulation? That's all wrong. Anyways, back to the safe trip. Exactly, the same thing holds true for your journey to financial freedom. Exactly what I said. If you don't know what you're doing, your journey is going to be either very slow or very dangerous. That's why most people think that going fast, going after a high rate of return, is dangerous, because they don't know how to drive the financial car. And not because going fast is necessarily dangerous. It's only dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And that's the essence of rule number 1, is knowing what you're doing. Investing with certainty so you don't lose money. I like that rule. Now you are probably wondering, what about mutual funds? What about all those techniques we learned to minimize risk and maximize returns? Well, folks, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but here's the truth. Being a mutual fund investor is a whole lot riskier than being a rule number 1 investor. Investing in a mutual fund is, in many ways, like handing your car key to the 11-year-old nephew. I'm really glad I'm reading this book, because as he's reading it, when I first read those words, I was like, what the fuck is this man talking about? But now that I've read this book and multiple other books, I feel like I'm like, oh, I do know this information. So that's really great. And this is really bringing up my confidence right now. I think I'm getting really close to feeling that confidence feel and taking that first action and knowing that I'm going to be successful in whatever it is that I'm investing in. And that has taken me almost a year to like receive that feeling of reading these books, and like I haven't even really taken any action yet. Compilation. Is that what they call them? I feel compilation is probably the right word, though, even though I don't feel like it is the right word. But it's like the combination of multiple videos in a reel. A compilation? I just feel like it should be like a B. Compilation. But I don't think that's right. I think compilation is correct. Okay. The mutual fund scam. I actually really loved learning about mutual funds. I should add that. No, I don't really need to learn about mutual funds because I'm not going to invest in mutual funds, so it doesn't matter. The mutual fund scam. If you own mutual funds that are attempting to beat the market and you're hoping your fund manager can give you a nice retirement, you're highly likely to be the victim of a huge scam. Huge, by the way. He's going to explain it really well, but I encourage you, if you have mutual funds, to get rid of them. Especially if you want to take in control your future. If you trust your person enough, I think you should just be happy that you're paying someone a lot of your future investment. You're not alone. 100 million investors are right there with you. Fortune magazine reports that since 1985, only 4% of all the fund managers beat the S&P 500 index. And the few who did it did so by only a small margin. In other words, almost no fund managers have done what they're paid by you to do, beat the market. The significant fact went unnoticed through roaring 1980s and 1990s, as the stock market surged with double-digit growth, bringing your fund manager along for the joyride. But now the ride is over, and investors are starting to notice that their fund managers are pretty much useless. This is not a new observation. Several years ago, Warren Buffett said that about your fund managers. Professionals in other fields, like dentists, bring a lot to the layman, but people get nothing for their money from professional money managers. The key word here is nothing, and yet, what do? You give your hard-earned money to one of these guys and hope he can deliver those 15% or better returns. Like the ones you got in 1990s? Why? Because you don't want to invest your money, and because you've been convinced by the entire financial service industry that you can't do it yourself. And I feel that. As a woman, I know that it might be different for men, but as a woman, like, I feel that emotionally, how much I've been told that it's impossible for me to do it by myself. And not even, like, in the sense that somebody looked me in the face and was like, you can't flip and do it. In fact, I feel like I've been told to my face that I can do it multiple times. The part that makes it seem like I've been told that, like, it's not possible is the fact that there's a huge group of people who are supposed to be like your financial advisors when it comes to this, where people went to school to be able to have these, right? And we all know the stock market, we've all seen the movies. Like, socially, I feel like I have been taught that this is for like these specific people. The same, like he explained with doctors, right? Like, I would never try and pull somebody else's tooth out. That seems kind of ridiculous. Or even my own. Like, when I was a kid, I hated when my parents tried to like get me to eat something to try and get my tooth loose. I swallowed them most of the time. I hated that. I wanted to see my tooth. I didn't want to swallow it. And like, there was blood everywhere, and that freaked me out. Like, why are we letting our mouths bleed all over the place? So like, I liked not having the tooth, but you know what I mean. Like, because I had that same mindset with investors as I did with like doctors, like, it made me feel like I would have to go to school and educate myself in a more professional form to be able to receive the information that was necessary to make the right choices. Not make choices at all. Like, I knew there was information out there and I could make the choices. I knew of Dale Carnegie. I actually think I have one of his books somewhere. And I think, and on top of that, investing and budgeting were two different things for me. I didn't perceive investing and budgeting as the same thing, but they kind of are. They should be in your mind, like, especially if you're going to be investing. Your budget should work with your investing plans. I think he talks about that in this book, actually. Okay, back to this. Come on, get real. From 2000 to 2003, mutual funds lost half of their value. Half. You could have lost 50% of your money without the help of a professional. In fact, in 1996, a monkey was hired to compete with the best fund managers in New York. I forgot about this. He beat them 2 years in a row. When I told this story one day to an audience in Los Angeles, someone from the upper deck in the Arrowhead Pond area yelled out, "What's the name of the chimp?" This is proof that people will do anything to avoid investing their own money. It's so true. I feel that. I'm almost 30, and I literally have known since I was like a child that I need to be doing this, and I have withheld from doing so until now. A year or two ago, actually, now, but still, the fact is I waited to my late 20s to even thinking about investing. And what's really sad is when I was in high school, I really wanted to buy Bitcoin, because I thought it sounded really cool, and I was like, oh my god, that'd be so cool. But then I was like, oh, I can't buy Bitcoin because I had money, but like I was like, I read this thing that it was like for college campuses where that's like they were trading their money. It was like another way to trade money. So I didn't see it as an investment opportunity. I saw it as like, oh, there's like this thing this campus is doing to, like, we did it at school all the time. You trade with like something else that's not real money. We do that all the time. So it wasn't surprising to me that people were using an alternative form than cash to pay for things. But I didn't see it as investment. Like, I didn't have that mindset during that time, and I had no one around me to like perceive it that way for me and to show it to me that way. So I didn't buy it, but I really wanted to buy it. I really wanted to have Bitcoin. I would never have used it. I would have never had the opportunity to use it. And when it got really, really high, at that time, I had enough information to know that it would have been smart to sell. And I would have made millions. But I didn't, because I didn't want to buy them at the time. I was literally near the school that was doing it too. We'd get like these morning shows that would come on, and they would buy like the local campuses, and they would play like what's happened recently over the night, over the day, over the weekend, whatever. And like it was like a little thing. By the way, you invest. I don't technically invest right now. Like, if you're asking me, do I have invested stocks in anything? The answer is no. Did I have a mutual fund at one point? The answer is yes. Have I done a lot of research and decided and made a plan of how I'm going to be investing in the future? Yes. Will I be an investor? Yes. But technically right now, I am not currently investing nor have invested in anything. And also, if I was doing that at this moment, I probably still would not share it because I think it could be very dangerous, as this book is saying, to invest in anything that you don't understand. So it's a 50-50. Yes and no, right? Like it's a complicated question because I have tried in the past. I have tried to invest, but my investments were with an ex, and so like it didn't pan out because he wanted the money, and the way he saw it was all his money, and I did nothing for the money, so I didn't receive any of it. Go me. That's what I get for not making someone marry me. Honestly, you get left. And then he wanted to come back, but I was like, no. You don't get to leave me with absolutely nothing and then come back and be my friend. That's not how this works. We're not going to be friends. Don't do that. Don't be friends with your exes. Unless you can manage it, but like, you really have to leave on good terms for it to work out. We're getting sidetracked. Let's go back. Peter Lynch, one of the few fund managers who made above market returns and then got out before the market leveled him, wrote in his book, One Up on Wall Street. This is one of the ones I need to read. I need to make like a little book list from the books. I'm pretty sure I've read One Up on Wall Street, but I want to do it again. Book list. One Up on Wall Street. This is by Peter Lynch. And you guys can start reading these books if you want without me. I'm just going to be doing notes and writing down certain things I need out of them, and encouraging people to read. So, it was up and then I lost it because it's not mine anymore. You know how it works. Life be lifing. But it's fine because, like, I don't need his money. I don't need his advice because mutual funds were stupid, and I'm glad that I didn't follow through following him investing. Win for me. Okay. Anyways, he wrote the book, One Up on Wall Street, that the amateur investor has numerous built-in advantages, which, if exploited, which, if exploited, should result in outperforming the market and the experts. In other words, you should be doing this for yourself, but you don't. The reason you don't is that the entire financial service industry perpetrates 3 myths of investing to keep people investing with them in spite of the industry's dismal performance over the long period. Now we're going to start getting into these myths, bruh. Mutual funds are stupid. They are still around. It's not were. They are. They are ridiculous. At this point, AI bots do so much of a better job that even if a person could get you the same return, like if you just get an index fund AI bot that like has an algorithm, you get anywhere between 15 to 21%. 15 to 21%. If a person is capable of doing that for you, they are going to want to take at least half of that. So you're barely, if you're lucky, going to get 10%. If you're lucky through a mutual fund. I'm just saying, if I can get 21% by having an AI do it for me, why would I pay someone to take half? Kind of ridiculous. It's not luck. There is no luck because the system is set up. The system is set up. There's a specific way that it all functions and works. So there's no luck. You just need to understand the system so that you can work within it. Because like, you and I are peas. We're peas when it comes to the system. We're like a little drop of water into the bucket. We don't, like, we might make a baby ripple, but, like, we're not, the bucket's not gonna overflow or get empty from us doing, like, selling or buying anything. The people who have functions around that are people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, any of those people who are mass buying stock at thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars. Now that will fucking shake how something's gonna work inside the market. And you need to pay attention to that shit. And they tell you, they have to tell you when they're gonna sell. They have to tell you how much they're gonna sell. So you have to pay attention to when they're gonna rock the boat. Because if they sell something, okay, they sell like half their fucking stock in something, everyone's going to it's going to do two things. One, which is most likely, is everyone's going to start selling too. Because they're like, oh, why the fuck is he trying to get out? And they're going to mass panic, and they're going to be like, I gotta get the fuck out. If he's selling half his fucking shares, he owns half the company. It's fine for him to sell half the shares. It's good for him to sell half the shares. He needs more people to invest into his company. So the best thing for him to do is to sell some of his fucking shares. Don't sell your shares. I mean, you can. Especially if it's, like, really overpriced. But, like, he's probably selling them in hopes that people will buy them so that his stock can go up more. So, like, don't do what the big guys do. Their game is a little bit different from ours. Like, we're watching for when they sell, why they're selling, right? Like, those are important. And if we are doing the same thing as them. Because, like, if they're selling to, like, increase people buying so their stock can go up more, then you want to buy. Because the stock after they sell is going to drop. It's going to be lower. You should buy it as it goes back up. It's going to make you money. Okay? And then, if you know what you're talking about, and you know what you're doing, you will know when it's overreached, like a high point, when it's way, way, way too much, and it's going to drop again. Because then you can sell, it will drop, be low again, you can buy it, hopefully around the same price that you bought it the first time, and guess what, it goes back up. And that's how you play the game. Unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is generally the gist of it. Typically, if you have a lot of money, that is how you want to play it. But if you're a smaller person, you probably just want to buy something that you know is going to always be going up. I mean, we have the fantastic, what, 8 now? The big 8 of companies. We know they're always going to be going up. We know they're always going to continue going up. Apple might be hitting its, like, streak. But people have said that since Apple's been around. So I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not perfect. I'm just saying what other people say that I think makes sense. Truthfully, you want me to be honest. I just read a lot of books and I repeat what they say. Because I'm like, I think they're true. Based on what I've seen and how things work. And I know someone who's used this information to make millions of dollars. So, I'm gonna trust them. No joke. No joke, brah. No joke, brah. No fucking jokes, man. Okay. Let's get down to these myths. I'm gonna take a little sip. It's gonna be so hot, I know it. I was right. Oh, I was right. Okay. The 3 myths of investing. Myth number 1. You have to be an expert to manage money. That's a myth. You have to be an expert to manage money. The first myth I want to bust is that it takes a lot of time and experience to manage your money. It would be if investing were hard to learn, or if getting the information to make a decision took a lot of time, I'll prove to you that it doesn't. Even though the financial service industry wants us to believe it does, the industry stands to make billions from commissions and fees if it can keep you thinking you can't do it on your own. The internet has changed everything. Now, the tools that used to cost $50,000 a year are available for less than $2 a day and take only minutes a day to use instead of 50 hours a week. And the internet tools are more accurate, more timely, and easier to apply than anything your fund manager had just a couple of years ago. All you need is a little instruction and a brief learning period. But don't bother to ask your broker, financial planner, advisor, certified public accountant, or fund manager if you should do this on your own. You know why? What they're going to say? You know what they are going to say? Something like, but that's what I do for you, so you don't have to. Well, you should worry about it a lot. It's your money, and you're the only one who really cares about what happens to it. Even the pros like Jim Cramer, a guy who in your corner and who wants to see you invest on your own, doesn't really know what it's like to be one of us. Like the rest of the top of the financial industry, Jim's Ivy League, incredibly smart, loves playing with stock all day and night, lives it and breathes it, and has no sense of what it's like to be you and me out there digging ditches someplace and hoping we can retire. For these guys, it's a game. A serious game. But still, a game. Jim's a trader and loves to speculate. Following his approach, you've got to put in 5 to 10 hours a week minimum. And you're playing a very dangerous game with money you can't afford to lose against really rich, really smart, and really motivated guys, just like Jim. If you think you can win at that game, be my guest. And if you do win, my hat's off to you. You're a lot smarter than the rest of us. For everybody else, me included, there has to be another way. Most of us don't have 5 hours a week for investing. Let's face it, we've got kids to raise, lives to live, and jobs that already take up more time than we have. We also don't want to be chained to watching the stock market or to become frantic day traders. What fun would that be? We're just looking for something to invest in that gets really great returns without the risk of losing money and without spending a lot of time at it. Rule number 1 is investing for the rest of us. Myth number 2, you can't beat the market. Okay, it's true that 96% of all mutual fund managers have not been able to beat the market in the last 20 years. But you're not a fund manager, and you are not the judge, and you are not judged by whether you beat the stock market. Your financial skill is judged by whether you're living comfortably when you're 75. You shouldn't care whether you beat the market. The market goes down 50%, but your fund manager loses only 40% of your money. He may have beaten the market, but does that seem good to you? Rule number 1, investors expect a minimum annual compounded rate of return at 15%. Minimum. A year or more. If we can get that, we don't care what the market did. We're going to retire rich anyway. Judged by that standard, rule number 1, investors, well, rule. The myth that you can't beat the market was started in the 1970s by, amongst others, Professor Burton Malkiel of Princeton University, who did lots of research purporting Purporting. What is this word? Purporting. Research purporting to prove that nobody... What is purporting? I'm going to learn a new word. You guys want to learn a new word with me? Purporting. Definition. Appear or claim to be or do something especially falsely. Okay. So false claims is what he's saying. To prove that nobody beats the market. We'll be going into greater detail regarding Malkiel's theories later on in this book, but we must mention him here to debunk this myth. His book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, still sells. He influenced a generation of professors in business school who is a Random Walk Down Wall Street? His book? Oh, no. I've read that book. I thought it was good. Okay, I need to write down another list of books. I'm going to write down A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Maybe I didn't finish it. And this is by Burton. If anyone's ever read that book, you should definitely leave like a comment on what you thought about that book. A Random Walk Down Wall Street. I'm going to say not good? Question mark. I'm going to say via Rule 1. Number 1 book. But I might read it anyways again just to kind of see what's said in it, and we can do kind of like the same thing back and forth. Oh no. Did you type that earlier? I don't know. The 2 books I have right now from this book, rule number 1 is One Up on Wall Street, Peter Lynch, which I plan to read. And I think I've read already. A Random Walk Down Wall Street, again, I think I've already read. By Burton Malkiel, but apparently it's not a good thing because he was lying about what he found. Okay. Anyways, his book, Random Walk Down Wall Street, still sells. He influenced a generation of professors in business schools who, as a body, subscribe to what has become known as efficient market theory, EMT. EMT says markets in general, and the stock market in particular, are efficient. That is, they price things according to their value. In the stock market, the ups and downs of the market are caused by rational investors responding minute by minute to the events that may affect their investments. According to EMT, the market is so efficient that everything that can be known about a company is already minute by minute figured into the price of its stock. In other words, the price of the stock at all times equals the value of the company. If that's true, say the professors who believe in EMT, then it's simply not possible to find a stock that's undervalued, and it's equally impossible to pay too much for a stock. Why? Because price is always equal to value. So there is no deal in the market, and there is no rip-offs. The situation, EMT theorists say, accounts for the fact that almost no fund managers ever beat the market. These fund managers are smart guys, and if none of them beat the market for long periods, then the market must be perfectly pricing everything. But some people do beat the market for long periods, and the point of this book is to show you how. You'll soon realize how false EMT really is. And actually, I think it's a very, very simplistic thing to be able to know that EMT doesn't work. I think we've all seen Noridian and Tesla this year reach outrageous prices for their stock. So much so that Elon Musk begged people to stop buying his stock last year. He literally, you can find online where he says, please stop buying Tesla stock multiple times in different settings, because he truly believes that it's overpriced, not worth it. But people keep buying it, and it keeps going up, and so people really don't know what's going to happen with the stock, because they don't know when people are going to stop buying it and realize that it's overpriced. But it has been for a really long time now. And I think Elon is preparing for that. Like, I know people don't like him, but, like, the fact is that these people are smart enough to work the system. Like, they're not just pretending to work the system, they are sincerely working the system and sincerely making a shit ton of fucking money off of it. Yes, Elon Musk was born into fucking being rich and probably understands it well, but, like, if he can do it, I don't see why I can't. So, in 1984, Warren Buffett gave a lecture at Columbia Business School in which he showed that at least 20 investors who he'd predicted would have high rates of return all beat the target of 15% handsomely for periods longer than 20 years. All of these investors hailed from the same school of investing, which was called Graham and Doddsville, because all had either learned from the Professor Graham and Dodd from Buffett, or from someone who was copying Buffett, the same way I learned from my teacher and the way you're learning from me. The way you're learning from me. Benjamin Graham was Buffett's teacher at Columbia. David Dodd was another professor at school. You know what? These are important people. We should have a people list too to look into. I think that's a good one. To research our people and kind of like their lives and how they came. I think a lot of people that I've seen that are successful and famous read bibliographies and stuff like that. Okay, so we need to look up Benjamin Graham, Graham, David Dodd. These are two people I have not looked up, but I'm going just to add Buffett in here. Just because I think he's a really good person that people should research. Okay. The compound annual rate of return for these investors over 8 decades ranged from 18% to 33% per year. The point Buffett was making to the Columbia student was that the people he knows who make over 15% a year for long periods all do it similarly. They all start with rule number 1. Okay. Ooh. After the 2000s to 2003 stock market debacle, when some very good businesses saw their stock values drop by 90%, Professor Malcolm was interviewed, and as we'll see in Chapter 8, he came as close to a retraction of his theory as an academic ever could when he admitted that the market is generally effective, but does go crazy from time to time. Oh, it's efficient, but sometimes it's not. Funny. But I thought that was what Buffett and Graham had been saying for 80 years. Buffett quips that he hopes the business school will continue to turn out fund managers who believe in EMT so that he'll continue to have lots of misinformed fund managers to buy businesses from when they price them too cheap and to sell businesses when they're willing to pay too much. Then there's a chart. Rule number 1, investors have fared over the last several decades as compared with the performance of the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Let's see if you can see it. I'll bring it up. Here's the little thingy. Whoop. Yeah, that's terrible. You can't see that. At some point, when I have my computers and everything working properly, I'll just throw it up on the side there. You'll see it. It'll be like, wow. And I'll be like, look at this chart. So let's just pretend there's a chart here. Oh, magical. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, but I'm just saying, since 1965 to 2005, they made $45 million, whereas the S&P made 314,000, and D&A made 217,000. So, yeah, like 23% compared to 9 and 8%. So, Samso, hello. What a great time. Yay, I can educate you. You know what? I'll do it really quiet, and that it could be like an ASMR bedtime ritual for you. How you doing, my friend? How you been? It's been a hot minute. But, you know, I did say that I only wanted to read for an hour, and I think, okay, we're about to make it to myth number 3. So let's finish this, and then we'll take a break from reading, and we'll do some research and video watching, because I got some ideas for us. How rule number 1 investors have fared in comparison with the market's most popular index. The chart may appear erroneous, like it's crazy, you know, or exaggerated, but it's not. Rule number 1, investors outperform the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average by a long shot, routinely. The magic of compound growth is what explains the massive difference between compounding at 8 or 9% per year versus compounding a little over 23% per year. Such a huge difference isn't so obvious at first glance because 23% is just 3 times bigger than 8%. One would automatically think the dollars should just be 3 times bigger, but compounding growth is not linear. It's what is called geometric. Compounding grows a rate of return not only on the original dollar invested, but also on the accumulating dollars returned. Interest on interest. Because 23% produces a higher dollar return every year, which in return has a 23% return on it. The accumulating dollar amount explodes after several years and rockets far from the lower 8% compounded return. Cool, huh? Alright, we'll pause there. That was a good one. That was a good beginning. We got 3 people we need to research, and we have 2 future books to be looking into. And we didn't even get that far. Oh, and treasury bonds to look into. So, I think that's what we're going to do today. But first, I need to end this one for my YouTube. So, give me 1 second. Alright guys, we're going to stop there for the rule number 1. We are stopping right before myth number 3. So if you want to read it on your own, that is where we're going to be reading up to. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. What books are you reading on investing right now? Bye!